Hello, my name's Ian Richardson. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host and one of the co-founders of Richardson and Richardson Consulting, and I'm joined here today by my friend Mark Shaw. Mark, how you doing?
Good. How are you today, Ian?
Hey, I'm doing great. Today we're going to be running through Mark's process for communication through company acquisition process. So Mark and the team at StoredTech have been growing both organically and non-organically, meaning through merger and acquisition. And Mark's going to share the secret sauce they use to manage communication through that process. Before we get started, I do read this disclaimer every single time upon advice of my own legal counsel. The presentations we do during the Thursday process are intended for educational purposes only. They should not replace independent professional advice or your own personal judgment. Statements of facts and opinions expressed are those of the participants individually. They don't represent the opinion or position of their employers or any sort of certifying bodies. Nothing presented here should be considered legal or financial advice. So talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer, talk to your wealth manager, talk to everyone. You may be watching this on demand. This is being recorded, so you might be viewing this on demand. If so, consider that the information presented has not been changed or updated since our original broadcast. It's 11:33 in the morning on Thursday, September 22nd of 2022. So that's when we're broadcasting. We're not updating it after that. A little bit of housekeeping. There are polls that happen throughout this presentation. We do appreciate your participation in those polls. Those polls are used by Carrie and I to recruit future guests and figure out future topics. So if you don't answer them, we don't know what you're interested in. So please do participate in the polls. It's highly valuable. There's a question and answer section up in the upper right-hand corner. There's chat and then Q&A. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat as we go through. It's really appreciated, and we will be dedicating some time today to answering them. Also, if I happen to see your question while we're going through, don't be surprised if I stitch it into our conversation so that you can get Mark's expert advice on those Q&A topics. Last but not least, there is a handout section at the top. If you click on handouts, you should see a PDF called Company Acquisition Communication.pdf. That is the process we're going to be referring to today. It's not the slides. It's not the slides that you're seeing. It's an actual process built out and branded that we'll be walking through today. So you're more than welcome to take that. That's for you and your team's use for being here today. If you're watching this on demand, you got to email me to get a copy. So if you want Mark's process, you got to reach out to me to get it. So feel free to connect with me and send a note. So everyone probably knows me, but I'm Ian Richardson. I'm one of the co-founders of Richardson and Richardson. I owned a managed service provider for about 16 years. I sold the end of last year, and now I do this. So it's my privilege and pleasure to be able to talk to fellow CEOs and entrepreneurs and learn about what they've done in their business to grow and succeed. And I'm joined today by Mark Shaw. Mark's the founder and CEO of Stored Technology Solutions Incorporated. Since opening that business in 2010, he's integrated multiple services into the company, which helps StoredTech evolve with the changing world of technology. His approach to new business endeavors is fearless, and it's led StoredTech to acquire several companies and expand to 5 different offices across New York, North Carolina, and the Philippines. That company is now over 70 employees. So Mark is kind of old hat at acquiring and growth. Yes, Glenn. Yeah, chat should be disabled. It's just Q&A. So thank you for publishing that out there. But that is by design. We have chat disabled. It's just question and answer. So thank you for that. I got distracted. His passion for technology blended with his energetic nature is what's driving StoredTech forward. And today he's here to share everything. There's no holds barred on how he handles communication with acquiring companies. Mark, How's the day going? And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. So far, so good. It's only about halfway done, right?
Yeah, it is. That is true. That is true. For those on the East Coast, we're almost to the lunch hour. So, what are we talking about today? We're talking about acquiring companies and specifically the challenges with communication. Communication almost always creates barriers in even the best of circumstances, and through the acquisition process there's a lot of challenges there. Mark, talk to us about some of these. We when you and I met before this webinar, you talked about merging two cultures, which really is true, right? Like, even though you're buying someone else's business, you still have to merge or blend two distinct teams and skill sets. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot that we can go in here. I can tell people probably much more what I've done wrong than what I've done right, right? We've all made a lot of mistakes that kind of make us hopefully better every time we do this. It's really funny because if you talk about company culture as a whole, most companies don't even realize that they have a culture. That's something that is inherently there. It's been built. A lot of times it takes on a lot of the form of the owner. If it's a smaller company, people tend to follow their leadership, so to speak. But when you try to bring two together, sometimes if you have a well-defined culture, and obviously it's something that StoredTech we spent a lot of time doing. We spent a lot of time studying not just the company's culture, how does the company react in a situation, right? A crisis happens with a client, what does the company do, right? Some companies may want to go and buy them cakes and flowers. Other companies might want to throw 12 engineers at it. So there's a whole company culture of how do you react as an organization, and that company culture is passed down from employee to employee to employee. Then you obviously have the personal individual culture as far as what do I bring? What does my personality bring to the table? And how do I interact with people of different personalities? And if you're talking with a smaller MSP, they may not even really realize that they have a culture or what it is. But when you bring these two things together, it's two opposing forces, right? They've had their leadership and the way that they interact and the way that they treat clients. They work with each other. They work with under adversity as well as when they're really kind of well-oiled machine. And then you also have the challenge of now you have your company. Now you're coming together. And if there's a fundamental disconnect in that, such as we want to delight the client at all costs, and their answer is we
Mhm.
want profitability at all costs, kill the client off if they're bad. If those are very ingrained cultures, you can imagine they're just not going to gel. You're not going to have a customer first and a customer second culture working together. Not that I think anybody necessarily believes that. Everybody believes, right, we are great at customer service and we do all this stuff. But the question is, what happens when you really get down to it? What are the brass tacks of that? And then how does that really parlay out there when you're saying this is how we interact versus what really happens behind the scenes? If the first thing the salesperson does is figure out how much they're going to bill in the middle of a crisis versus how do we fix the crisis, you've got very diverse stuff happening, right? Very, very diverse stuff happening. So bringing those two cultures together, you really have to figure out, is it a fit? I mean, that's the number one
Yeah.
thing I look at. Will this culture even interact with our culture in the same way? If it's
Yeah.
miles apart, I may love all the players, I may love all the profitability, I may love the concept, but I'm probably going to pass.
Yeah, you know that there's going to be that fundamental disconnect that causes the acquisition to fail, and a failed acquisition is just like a failed hire at scale. You bring in one sales rep or one engineer or whatever, and they end up not working out 6 months down the road. Not only do you have to rehire and re-spend all that cash, but you just dumped that sweat, blood, and treasure into that one resource. Now imagine that with 10 people and
Mhm.
with 50 clients.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean that the number one thing we look at is the underlying company culture compatible? If it is, then we can kind of head to the next steps, right?
Mhm. Yeah, being able to do that, and there's a process that came out, a tool set almost that came out when you and I spoke that I want to share with folks. And this isn't on the slides, but in the process document, Mark and his team really flow through a communication technique that I created an acronym out of, which is clear and clear communication. Haha. Ian likes to make a little bit of puns every once in a while, but it's about communicate, lead, expectations, acknowledge, and respond. And to run through those, Mark, you and your team really focus on frequently and consistently communicating to all parties throughout the process. So, your team, the new members of your team, the new customers of your team.
Absolutely.
So the acquired customer base, the acquired talent base, as well as your current talent base, those three people are all communicated to, as well as outside vendors and partners to let them know, hey, this is what's happening. We're bringing things in. Um, so you're focused on that frequent, consistent communication, leading by example. So leading culture first, making sure that you and your team of leaders are leading by example and that you're walking the walk of what you preach and practice. Setting those clear, concise expectations, expectations being key, acknowledging concerns, critiques, complaints, and feedbacks when it's given to you. So mirroring it back or repeating it back, making sure you clearly understand it. But then also making sure not only did we acknowledge, but we respond. And we're not in a rush to respond right away. It's a, hey, do I understand your complaint, your concern? Let's set a next step. Let's set a next time to talk. Let me go back, coordinate with the team, and come back to you with an action plan. So not being in a rush to respond right away. That was that was the communication guideline principles that really bubbled up was communicate, lead, expectations, acknowledge, and respond. Can you talk to us about how some of those how some of those steps really bubble up as you're going through the acquisition process?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, let's just, let's start with that, the beginning, right? If we start there and we realize communication is everything. How many times do we hear our clients, you don't communicate with us enough, or we haven't heard from you, or you only talk to us when you want to sell us something, or we only talk to you guys when there's a problem. We'd love to know you better. I've said it 1,000 times in 1,000 meetings. I've never once had a client call me up and go, "You guys just talk to me too much. Could you be less chatty?" Right? No one ever says that. Everybody wants to know that they're valued and they're an important part of the organization, and it doesn't matter inside or outside. So if we want to look at the communication part, we'll start with that. Internally, there's a lot of people who probably won't be in the know until it happens, right? So the day it happens is literally going to be one of the most terrifying days for an employee. You show up one day, your boss says, "Hey, why don't we all come in the conference room? I want to talk to you about Mark. Mark is now owns us. He bought us effective midnight yesterday," right? You can
Mhm.
imagine that is just a chaotic event for anyone at all to come into. So you need to make sure that you have a very clear path and organization and conversation with everybody. Here's what to expect, right? Guys, we're all in this together. This is immediately becomes the we language, right? We're here. This is what we're going to do. How can I help you guys? What's worked well? Again, open communication, a lot of open ended questions. They're going to have a lot of questions, right? You can have all these conversations where you're not necessarily just kind of telling them, and here's the marching orders from your new big boss, right? That's a terrible way to do it. So you want to
Mhm.
be able to have that conversation and allow the people to share what they're thinking, their thoughts, their feelings. For a lot of people, this is the very first time they heard that they are no longer ABC Corp and now they're part of StoredTech. If you can have empathy, right? If you can empathize that, wow, this is a very chaotic day for them. They walked in Monday morning and this is not what they expected to hear, right? They
Mhm.
expected to go to their desk and do what they do. People don't like change. They don't like to be shocked.
Yep.
Having that really good communication. In our world, we pretty much have a Friday morning meeting. It's an hour meeting, and every department and every location is present and aware. So there's ways that you can immediately make them feel part of the organization, right? Immediately bring them in. Conversely, you want to look at your clients, right? The clients have churn events. There's a number of them, right? Changing your
Yep.
account manager, having a buyout or an acquisition, right? Having a changeover in maybe their favorite staff. These are all things that can implement or create an event where the client goes, "And I'm out," right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
the very first thing you want to do is make sure that you have multiple layers of clear communication. Some clients are, you automatically, in my mind, you force rank the clients, right? These are the top of the top clients. They're going to need some sort of personalized visit. I'm getting on a plane. I'm getting in a car. We're going to go see them. We're going to tell them face to face, right? Their old leadership, their new leadership. We're going to be engaged with them and say, here's what to expect. Here's what we're looking at doing. And typically I'll walk in and going, I'm not making any major changes for the first 6 months. I want the
Hmm.
situation to go as normal. I'm going to introduce you to new resources. We're not working on, and I'm not immediately out there trying to change billing and price points. I want them to feel a sense of normality, almost a sense of, wow, that was pretty boring, if possible, right? If they're a client who's in a churn risk already, I want to find out everything I can from them. Tell me everything we possibly ever done wrong as ABC Corporation. I want to make sure I don't make those same mistakes, right? I don't want to create a clean slate with you guys, but I want to make sure you guys realize that I don't want to recreate sins of the past, right? It's a new day, it's a new group. And really walking through these kind of steps with people really gives them a good understanding. Obviously, you want to have very clear conversation if anything's going to change that is going to be facing the client for technology. We even typically we'll leave billing under the old company name, maybe with our logo of powered by for a while.
Hmm.
And then at the end of it, we'll switch it over. So the client has almost the frog in the frying pan scenario, right? It starts very warm, and before things have even done percolating, they don't even realize they were, oh wow, well, we're just used to calling StoredTech and reaching our technology team now. So
Yep.
really that's a key thing to do when you talk to that communicate level.
And so diving in, like one key point about some of the decisions is that you and your team have a strategy and tactic defined around communication before that day that you just talked about.
Oh,
Like, hey,
absolutely.
we're walking in, we've got to talk to 5, 10, 15, however many people and say, hey, like, I'm Mark, I'm the CEO of Stored Tech, and welcome home. um,
Exactly.
but you map this stuff out in advance. You
Oh,
guys you
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
guys war game this through in advance. Here's how we're going to talk to the clients. Here's how we're going to talk to the team. Talk us through that the strategy and tactics you guys use.
Sure. So in the beginning, obviously, we're dealing with a business owner or leadership team. We want to make sure that they start to understand who StoredTech is before we present it to their employees. So if we look on the employee side, we get together with the leadership team. A lot of times, we will get their leadership team to meet with our leadership team face to face. I don't know about you guys, but I'm Zoomed to death.
Oh
After
yeah.
this pandemic nonsense, I really don't want to do that. So whether we get on a plane, whether they get on a plane, typically what we'll do is we'll try to bring them to our corporate offices and have either the owner or the leadership team meet everybody here. I would say it's how to have an interview with that person without necessarily calling it an interview. We bring them here. We will run them through our culture study, right? We'll explain the rationale of why StoredTech does culture studies, what their personality type is, how their personality type is going to interact with the rest of their leadership. So, I mean, we could go down a lot of rabbit holes. I think it's spend hours and hours on any one of these
Mhm.
topics. But out of the gate, we really want to make sure that the leadership on their side feels connected to leadership on our side. They've met the people, they understand their personalities, they understand the players. So when that leadership goes back, and in this case, let's say that CEO goes back, he's really feeling pretty good about, I know I've now met everybody. I like them. They like me, right? It's the honeymoon time. They know the strengths and weaknesses. They'll start saying, wow, we could never do that because we could never scale to that. So we start to show them some of the value and benefit. We typically won't talk to too much of our staff of why they're here, other than they're visiting MSP, trying to understand what we do better, right?
Mhm.
If anything. And then, of course, to share some ideas. Conversely, we'll then put a plan in play for their staff. Who would stay, who might be offered alternative roles, and of course, for this person, the CEO of the leadership team, what are they going to do? Because a lot of times going, well, I already do this, and now you don't need me because you're the CEO. Well, great, but you have a lot of value as the CEO, right? You think
Mhm.
and act like a business owner. There's a ton of value to you. So we figure out what their role is going to be, well defined, job description, salary, everything is all laid out for them. So there is no mystification, right? An employee, an owner, nobody wants to be uncertain what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Then we'll go
Every
through. Then we'll go through their team, right? We will go through their entire, team and have their leadership team going. These are the people that absolutely have to be here. We do not want to lose them whatsoever. These are the people that we've been trying to coach or mentor. These are people who are brand new. These are the people that know where all the bodies are buried. So we have a really good breakdown of who everybody is, right? We love Sally, but Sally's always been misaligned, but we could never get Sally to do what she really likes to do, which is project management. So she's been doing procurement. Okay, cool. We have an opportunity for project management. So let's make Sally happy right out of the gate. by offering her a job in the PM world. So we are often able at our size to find room for people to move to where they may not have been able to before. And then, of course, there is the redundancy. And if there is redundancy, you got to be honest about it. Listen, I don't need two VPs of finance, but
That's
we
right.
have a lot of clients, we have a lot of vendors. Let's help you find a new role, right? So we're in front of these people, we'll talk to them. We always talk to everybody one on one, and we'll try to help define what those new roles look like. Or maybe I can help you find a role in another firm. I know a buddy who's been looking for a VP of finance. I hear you're great. Why don't I get you connected? Maybe they have a new job tomorrow. The idea is no matter what happens, it can't always be, you want win win win, right? Win for you, win for them, win for the employee. Sometimes that's not going to happen. So the best thing you can do is have everybody leaving with really good vibes. I wasn't going to be a good fit at StoredTech, but man, StoredTech just got me a new job. I had no loss in pay. I had no downtime. Man, I really like those guys. Maybe I can go back, because you don't know, right? And the world's small.
Oh
That
yeah.
person may show up at your door tomorrow and you might be like, I need you back.
Yep.
How you leave them is how they're going to decide on whether or not they would love to come back and be with you again. So there's a lot of stuff there from that standpoint for the employees. Tons and tons to go through.
Yeah, yeah, that having that action plan where everyone walks away from the table either as part of the team or with a good taste in their mouth
Hmm.
is such a key piece. And so there's a couple of things to dive into there. A few of the infrastructure things to consider is you're going to be merging two companies. So as IT guys, it might not feel that scary, but you've got two different Office 365 instances, or maybe
Oh,
O365 and Google. You've got different RMMs, PSAs, making sure that you have a plan around
oh
how
yeah.
you're going to integrate those systems. If you're acquiring a book of business, if you just bought an MSP that has 50 clients, congratulations, you got to do 50 onboards, and
You
you
do.
have to do
You
them.
do.
You have to do them all at once. And then Mark had mentioned around that joint collateral, that powered by or a stored tech company is such a key piece of cohesion for 6 months, 12 months, where you can do some co-branding, some co areas to where people are still calling ABCIT. It's just powered by stored tech or a stored tech company or a stored tech partner for a little while until the branding can be swapped over. Talk to us about at-risk targets. So you've got at-risk clients and you've got at-risk employees. Talk to us about that, Mark.
Sure. So, I mean, you have employees that, I'll give you a real life example. So, we acquired a company, and obviously, one of the employees had no idea what was happening. So, the employee ended up having a situation where they were found out that they were acquired the day of, and we talked to him, and that employee had literally said to us, "Well, actually, I was looking for another job. So, had you not come along, I may not have been here." And obviously that employee's now been to our corporate office, and we've really helped that person out significantly. And he said, he goes, I was at risk, whether you knew it or not. I was going to churn. And I have an opportunity doing what I want. For him in this case, he was doing some structured cabling work, some
Mhm.
phone system work, some wireless access point work, and some tech support level one work. He said, I really want to do infrastructure side of the house, meaning I want to do cabling and access control and cameras. And we were able to drive him right into that immediately, saying, we have a need for it, you're in. And he shared with us that I was an at-risk employee, right? I was probably not going to make it. Conversely, we have, you have employees that you believe are going to be awesome for you, right? This is one of my rock stars. And then you find out that your rock star isn't a rock star. You find out that not only is your rock star really good technically, let's say he's an engineer, he can be terrible personality wise. We did things better, your company isn't better, you don't know what you're doing, I wish we would do it our way. Those people are toxic. If you have somebody who's just not going to fit, I don't care how brilliant technically they are, if they are rowing against you in the new organization, they have to go. I don't care if it's the smartest engineer you ever met on planet Earth. He's got to go. She's got to go. You can't do that. So be aware of that really, really quickly. That is just one of those huge red flags. And when it comes to bringing people together, if they're in the same geo as you, I highly recommend that you don't leave their office out there on their own. If you can fit them in your organization and you can fit them in your office space, Rip that Band-Aid off quickly. People sitting apart, people not communicating and not being part of it is the worst thing possible. We had one recent acquisition. We showed up at their office at 7 o'clock in the morning with 2 large U-Haul vans. We filled them up. We broke down their whole offices with them and us. They met a whole bunch of our people. We brought them over. We gave them all new offices and all new setups. By 8 in the morning, they showed up. By 4 p.m., they were literally comfortable in their new office. Talk about just bringing everybody together in a very rapid manner. It may seem chaotic. People may get a little jittery about it, but at the end of the day, they are now in the same spot, in the same pace, driving it slowly and slowly moving people over and figuring out new offices. No, have a plan day one to intermingle those. If you cannot bring everybody to your office because there's not enough space and you're going to keep their office, mix and match, right? Bring some of their people to one location, some of your people to theirs, spend that money to automatically entangle those teams immediately.
Yeah, creating that getting to know availability in an intentional way. Creating, like, if you're not able to put them into the office, he had mentioned doing lunches, team building,
Yes.
company events have to be created intentionally so that everyone gets to have that bonding. And even if it is that far away space, there's the potential of still doing some face to face time. A peer of mine who's in the marketing industry did an acquisition over on the West Coast, and they rented a company housing apartment
Mhm.
essentially over there for the course of a year. And every 2 weeks, a new member of the team goes from Grand Rapids, where they're located in Michigan, out to Portland, Oregon, to create that intentional space. So they're sending out a project manager or an account manager or a copywriter or someone. Everyone's been flying over there to get some face to face time to grow with that team, to help out with that talent retention. Because one of the biggest challenges, especially in today's market, is finding good talent.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's almost impossible to hire right now because everyone's doing it.
Absolutely. And the other interesting, like to your point, we make a point of saying if you work for us and you have never day one, come up to our office in Queensbury. So we schedule everybody to fly up here to be up here. Conversely, we take people from our New York offices and send them to our North Carolina offices, right?
Mhm.
Everybody should commingle. I literally had a VP just fly back last week, and I have a client success rep who's going to spend a week down in Raleigh from our New York office next week. We are constantly having people go back and forth to continue to build relationships. Even once the organizations are well founded and well kind of oiled as far as part of the StoredTech name, you can still have distance can take people apart. So you're absolutely right. Bringing people together on a very purposeful and a very set pattern really drives everything forward. It really brings cohesion.
So, one of the most valuable sections of the Thursday process that people always send me little private notes raving around it is missteps. And this isn't a Schadenfreude type of scenario, but everybody learns differently. But a common thread is usually if you see a misstep or hear about a misstep, you can then relate to it and go, "Ooh, I really don't want that to happen to me."
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about? I'd like to run through. Maybe we can do it timeline based, Mark, because
Sure.
you and I had a really robust conversation around like, okay, well, here's some mistakes I learned from. But maybe you could pick out three good missteps, one from before an acquisition,
Yep.
one right when the acquisition happened, and one maybe like, hey, we thought this was digested, but this
Mhm.
blew up later. So if you could choose three and kind of share, hey, here's what happened and here's some lessons learned, that's going to be the most hammered on, reviewed, replayed portion of this video.
Cool. Well, no pressure there whatsoever. So I can give you a laundry list of things I've done wrong. I don't know what other people want to hear that I've done wrong. I think one of the biggest things is that culture. Go back to that day one. I will tell you at any point in time, we all get really excited about an acquisition. I don't care if you've done 6 of them. I don't care if you've done 100 of them or you've done none of them. On either side of that, you get that euphoria. You get those little rose-colored glasses. This is going to be
Mhm.
great. This is going to be awesome. I love this person. They love me. This is amazing. I will tell you right now, the first thing you don't do, don't step back, right? That honeymoon period will die off. That those people around the table are going to be your new right hand people, whether you want them to be or not, or they will be the biggest destruction for your organization if you let them. So I'm going to talk about culture. One example, perfect example. I got rose colored glasses. I was excited. It was a new market. It was a new space for us. It was a new location for us. I was really excited. Brought this company online, a smaller organization, only like 5 people. I fell in love with the leadership. I thought this was going to be fantastic. Private jet, flew them around. Everything was amazing. Super excited about it. And then realized as soon as the honeymoon period was over, is our cultures don't jive, right? We're trying to run a business here that's profitable and doing everything else. That organization was literally had 37 different backup platforms. Like there was no consistency to anything. We skipped all the due diligence. We skipped all the stuff because we really wanted this.
Mhm.
Don't want it so bad that you ignore the red flags, guys. Stop. Look at the red flags. That was a terrible, right? Out of the gate, we didn't know that when we got together. It was just, we were trying to bring price point. There was no price consistency. There was no product consistency. And
Mhm.
so that was out of the gate. That was just a terrible idea. Rose colored glasses. Everybody loved everybody until they didn't. Right. So here we are now, 3, 4 months down the road, a lot of hard conversations with a lot of clients. We can't do this anymore. Flat rate for $12 a month is not an option. I wish I was joking. I'm not even joking. Again, we were way too excited and did not spend the due diligence we should have. Now we're having tough conversations with clients. Clients like, well, then I'm never going to pay that. I don't even know you. I'm leaving. Right? Huge churn risk. I would say that in hindsight, probably exactly what needed to happen. Those low margin or loss leader clients have to go away. You guys can't run a profitable business losing money every month on charity. I would have liked to do it in a more professional and structured way, but we didn't. And then
Mhm.
now put 3 more months behind that. And we find out that I probably should have exited the owner and not brought the owner over. Just toxic from the word go. We're smarter, we're better, we're stronger. We should have done this. We did it better without you. We were making money without you. I don't understand why you need to make more money. A thousand reasons why we were the mortal enemy. And there was no we language. It was you, your company, your things. Conversations with clients would start as, I don't know what they're doing. Um, just
Oh,
awful. I mean, obviously, exited is, as soon as I got a hold of exited, honestly, to be honest, I exited most of the organization, went down and literally exited almost everybody, and then brought in a whole new team. We literally stunted our growth in that market by about a year to year and a half because we did not do any of the right things. I'm not talking a misstep. I'm talking I fell off the side of a crater. Obviously, it's made me a lot smarter. But I mean, those are some great examples. Not only did you have the culture not fit, then you
Mhm.
didn't have a good client fit, and you had churn right off the bat almost immediately. And long term, none of those employees were part of the we. They were all part of the us, I, or how we used to do it was better. And I remember making the comment going, well, if you guys were that great, then why didn't you buy me? Right.
Yeah.
It's just like, why are we acquiring you? And why did you let that happen? Because you guys were losing money hand over fist and somebody needed to come in and turn it around. But by that point in time, clients damaged, reputation damaged, employees are all just wasted. It was awful. It was honestly, if you want to talk about missteps, that's a misstep. That's stepping on a landmine and not even realizing it. All because I didn't follow the process day one, which was truly understand the culture and the values of that organization.
Yeah, that story rings home, and it hits me right below the right below the camera line, right in the gut. We did an acquisition at my old MSP, and it went the exact same way. There was a lack of due diligence. There was excitement. There was, hey, it's a new geo market. There's all this opportunity. Not a lot of good competition there. And there was such a mismatch on every single step of the road: the service offering, the service level, the expectations, the pricing strategy, the communication required from the clients, the engagement. It did not work out. And over the course of 24 months, 24 to 36 months, 100% of those accounts left. Not
Ugh.
all at once. It's a slow and steady decline. We lost the talent.
Mhm.
and we lost the acquired market over time. We lost it all to the same competitor, and it was truly because we didn't understand what we were buying, and the experience was incredibly good because we learned about that. We learned how we failed. We learned what we really needed to do, and what the red flags were. Because there's no at least we were unaware of any sort of manual or guidebook or, hey, here's how you buy a company and here's how you do this. Like everyone says, oh, yes, here's due diligence, but no one really talks about, look, if you're seeing this, this is a red flag. If you're seeing this, this is a red flag.
But you ignore those red flags too, Ian. You
Yep. Oh,
get in
100%.
love with the idea, and every red flag could be hitting you in the face, and you're just sitting there going, I nope, nope, this will still be great, right?
This will still work out. We'll be
We'll
fine.
figure it out. You
Yeah.
don't figure it out, by the way. It actually, you figure out you suck.
Those red flags apply to others, not to me.
Oh, okay.
So
uh,
there's a couple of really, really key points throughout the process. And so what we're referring to is under the handout section, the process document. There's a couple of key pieces here that I wanna go through. And what one of the areas we've been talking about is talent loss, but a specific part of talent loss. If you're buying an organization, and Mark, you clued into this early on around job eliminations.
mhm.
Hey, we're buying this, and there are certain people who just, unfortunately, we've looked at the bus, we've looked at every seat on the bus, we've even looked at our future map org plan and said, oh, well, maybe we can create a seat on the bus
Yes,
for them, and there's just not a fit here.
yes.
Talk to us, and you mentioned like going through the client base and things like that, but just walk us through any other key takeaways around having those tough conversations with someone saying, I'm sorry, there's not a place here.
Yeah, so I think, you have to, again, like I said to everybody, you walk in the room the first day and you're like, we're here. Everybody in that room is like, well, am I going to be here? Right? Am I still safe? Will my job exist? Will I have to do something different? Everybody panics on that. And I think that, again, up front, you want to be as quick as possible in making those decisions. You don't want to belabor their point. You don't want to mislead them and go, well, let's talk about it and we'll see where you fit. No, if they're not going to, you should have had that conversation. That should have been done before you signed the paperwork. You come in with a plan for each person, right?
Mhm.
Day one, you're going to want to interview anybody you want to keep around. You don't even have to call it an interview. I call it a get to know you time. I'm asking them all the questions I would ask in an interview, but they feel like they're just chatting with me or one of my leadership team. I will once you if you get through that part and there's just no spot on the bus for you, you have to be upfront with them. Listen, it we don't need to, and it's not going to be you. But let's talk about your what you'd like to do, where you'd like to be, and let's work on this. So maybe I can help you exit the organization gracefully. Maybe I give you, some severance or some time to leave. We have an in-house recruiter, which is really awesome for us. I will typically use the in-house recruiter and go, all right, we're going to flip the script here. Instead of looking for people who fit
Nice.
this criteria, we have this person who fits this criteria. Go find the jobs that are open. Maybe we can help them polish a resume. We can help them get their references in order. We can help them make a transition from what would no longer be a fit in StoredTech to someone else. And if you do it right, I mean, we've done it right before. We
Uh-huh.
transition engineers to vendors who now are raving StoredTech fans. So when we need an extra few points to be competitive, we got those vendors helpful to us. We've also done it where we've sent them to some of our clients. So now inside of our client base is somebody who is a raving fan of StoredTech. How does that influence pay off, right? So there's a win-win. The employee gets a new spot, gets a new home, potentially with a position that he or she loves, and we still have somebody who's not out there going, I hate them, they fired me, right? So you
Yep.
do want to be able to realize that, and there's always going to be those people, right? No matter what we try to do, I can't find anything for you. Sorry, right? Hopefully, no matter what, they appreciate all the effort that was put into them. They realize that there was definitely some resources behind their success as a person, not as necessarily an employee. So that's
Yep.
the best we can hope for.
Yeah, creating that win-win. The more I found over the years, the more people who have that positive experience, like when they jump, if they jump from an organization, hey, suddenly now you have a buddy who just went to a
Exactly.
brand new prospect. Like this
Yep.
is a brand new prospect, and invariably when something's going wrong in tech, well, you got to call my old shop, which is StoredTech. They'll come in and take care of you,
Yeah.
and
It's
that
amazing,
tag
right?
along.
And every world is a small world. I don't care where
Mhm.
you're at, where you work, you will see the same faces turn up. I've seen people that I thought were fantastic that just weren't a fit for us. Now, we grew from 50 to 75 people. You know what? I actually have an idea for that role. Would you love to come back? Would you like to even consider it? I can tell you that there are people that maybe left because there was no upward lateral movement. When some became available, it happened. Uh, there's a phrase, and I use it all the time. It says, "Time changes all circumstances." Right. So a no today could be a hell yeah tomorrow. Right. Just be
100%.
ready for that.
100%. Talk to us about so one of the things that's going to come up, and I don't see this, like this is pretty secret sauce type of stuff here because you just don't see it come up in the conversations. But one of the things that is thought about but not necessarily talked about is the client relationship move. So you've probably got two different scenarios. You've got a scenario where, hey, we acquired an MSP and the owner is the primary client focused relationship holder. So they all trust Ian, the owner of ABC IT. Or you're buying an MSP that has an account manager, maybe has a couple of account managers, and you find out either at the point of acquisition or down the road, hey, we got to make a turn, we got to make a change. We have to
Mhm.
move these relationships from Ian to Tom, or from Ian to Jane, or from Jane to Bob, whatever might be happening. Talk to us about moving those client relationships and how you manage the churn risk that comes along with that, because that I think is going to be a pretty valuable bit of information to share.
Sure. So the churn risk is, almost anything can cause that, right? You increase prices, churn risk. You change an account manager, churn risk, right? You buy another MSP, churn risk, right? So there's a lot of different pieces that can create churn. The first thing is to be aware of them. Don't be so naive as like they're going to love us because all our clients love us. Well, maybe they do, and maybe they don't. A lot of times, yes, if you're buying a smaller MSP, there's a lot of one-on-one relationship, right? That CEO of ABC knows all these other people, and there's a very tight relationship there. The first thing you need to do, and we talked about this a little bit out of the gate, is have a plan, right? Your plan of communication with those clients. You want to work on, I mean, day one of hiring that, bringing on that new MSP, it's all about you bought their book of business, right? You bought their staff, their book of business, you bought all that stuff. It's almost like saying, "Hey, listen, I just went out and bought all these groceries, but on the way to the car, I'm going to throw out half of them." Don't do that, right? You want to make sure that you have as many groceries as you left the store with. Stay there. It's the same thing with clients and employees and everything else. You want to make sure whatever you decided to choose to bring with you, you bring with you. So communicating with the client is just the first thing of warning them, or at least informing them, "Hey, there's a change been made." But you really want to go into revenue preservation mode. You want to look at the biggest chunk, the 80-20 rule, right? You want to look at the top clients that are most of the revenue for this MSP that you just acquired. And you want to quickly, and I say you as the owner, you want to create a relationship. When there was a one-to-one relationship, you want to make it a one-to-many almost immediately for you database geeks out there, right? You want to really make sure that the business owner knows the old business owner and they know you or someone
Mhm.
on your team, depending on how it is. You want to have C-level to C-level conversations with these people. You want to make sure that you're involved and engaged with them. If you just leave this to your team or other people and you don't get involved, you are neglecting something that will probably come back to get you later. You have to have those conversations. You have to make sure that you pair people up. So in our world, we pair
Mhm.
a sales exec with a client success rep. So if we ever have a churn in a client where either a CSR or a sales exec leaves,
Oh.
they only lose one point of contact out of their team. So they feel that they have a team working on them. And if you have, let's say Sally and Bob leaves, they still know Sally. If we now replace Bob with Frank, Frank and Sally now become the new points of contact. So don't leave yourself in a spot where you only have one point of contact for these clients at any functional level, right? They should know multiple engineers, they should know multiple people in leadership, and they should have multiple people on their exec team from the sales and the service side of things. And that's
So
what we do.
building up intentionally with the way that you manage clients, build up a multi touch point or a multi person system so that you're not building in single points of reliance out of the gate.
Yeah, exactly. And it really works really well because think about it this way. If a client is having their worst day ever, they're going to start reaching out to people that they feel comfortable talking to, right? So if they're really upset because an engineer did something that was just ridiculous, they're going to try to reach out to their client success rep. Then they're going to try to reach out to their sales exec. And then they're going to try to reach out to maybe even up to me, right? Up to the sales VP, up to the VP of maybe finance, and then up to all the way, like I said, to the CEO level. You want to make sure that they know those people. Because if they don't know those people, there's no relationship. All they realize is I only know Sally. And if they don't know anyone else around Sally or in the organization and they can't get a hold of Sally, they're calling up somebody else going, I'm frustrated, help me. Where if you have multiple touch points, there's multiple people they can vent to. I read an interesting article when it comes to IT support or anything in the IT space. It says when someone's calling you up on the phone and they're really, really frustrated about whatever they're frustrated about, whether it's billing or my computer doesn't work or whatever the case is, they're talking to you for one reason, Ian, and it's because they fundamentally believe you can help them. Nobody calls up somebody that can't help them and vents to them about it. They're not going to do that. The reason they're venting to you is because they believe you can help them. So give them multiple avenues to find people who can help them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's two key other parts around any sort of process, and that's management and feedback or tweaking. So how do you what's walk us through what you guys do to say, hey, are we communicating at the right cadence? Is our communication being consumed effectively? Talk through some of the management processes that you use across communication when you're talking and acquiring other businesses and integrating them into the StoredTech team and family.
Yeah, so there's the people side, which is, or the employee side of it, and then there's the customer side, right? Customer side needs to be clear, constant, and very precise. This is what we're going to do on this day, and then you need to do it, right? Do what you say you're going to do and do it. It's funny. I always, and that's just start with that. It's funny. I told a bunch of people, I said, hey, listen, when I'm back in town, we're going to order up those great breakfast sandwiches we get. I got back in town. I was busy for the first few days. And then somebody said, are you going to do those breakfast sandwiches? I said, yeah. But you think about it, and that's just kind of a microcosm of a much bigger picture. If you say you're going to do it, right? If you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it. And even though it seems really silly for breakfast sandwiches, not to the person that remembered, I'm going to get a breakfast sandwich sometime next week, right? And so to those clients, you may be saying, we're going to do this cutover and it's no big deal. We've done 1,000 of these, but they may not view it the same way. They may not have that same, we've done this 1,000 times. Yeah, but I haven't done this 1,000 times. So you really want to make sure that you spend a lot of time working with how the clients and being very, very direct, very precise, and follow up. If you say you're going to start at 9, start at 9, right on the dot. If you can have a resource available, if it's going to be something that's really client impacting, have a resource there. If it's even better, if it's a big client or a large, have 2 or 3. Old team, new team, all working together. They see that, they visualize that. On the employee side, you just have to have really good conversations with them. Part of that whole get to know you thing. I love some one-on-one time with you. Go to lunch, go to dinner, have a drink with them. Let them really open up. You'll find that if people let their guard down, and definitely do this one-on-one. You can't interview with a team against one person because that one person is going to be on their guard against every single person they talk to. One-on-one, a relaxed environment, and let that person tell you, because that person may go, listen, I've been the best employee, but I'm not happy. And here's why. Listen to the feedback. I always tell everybody, I buy companies for multitudes of reasons. Everybody and their brother will say, yes, it's for money, right? It's profitability, hands down. We want the revenue. But the real reason, especially in today's world, is you want to buy a lot of people because you want their talent. So if you put that kind of stuff in there and you realize, like, why are you acquiring this organization? And part of it is, and the final one, the biggest one to me is, what are you guys doing that's really, really smart that I've just never even thought of, right? How
Hmm.
do I grow as an organization by understanding, man, you did these 3 or 4 things and you're freaking brilliant, man. I want to do those. So we have shifted the entire organization based on an idea or a skill or a product or something that somebody else is doing that's just better. Tell us a better way to build a better mousetrap, right? I will build it all day long if you show me you got a better one. So we've taken every one of these organizations, and I can probably go through each one and say, these are the things they did that was useful.
Yeah, being able to capture those down and get them, and then when you retain the customers and retain the talent, that's the feedback right there. And when they come in and say, hey, this is better, or I'm feeling really good about that. That's that positive feedback. And then on the other hand, when you start to see churn going through, that would indicate that communication is breaking down and failing.
Absolutely. Yep. And you don't
So
want to do that. That's your money, right? That's what you just spent your money on.
exactly, we don't want that at all. So, Mark, getting close to the back half of the hour that we're spending together and sharing this knowledge, take a little bit of time and walk everyone through who is StoredTech, what do you do, and then I know that there's also a community that you manage that I'd love to have you share here with our guests and for those who will view this on demand as well. So take a couple of minutes and talk through that.
Sure. So StoreTech is probably looks a lot like you guys and girls out there, right? It is a managed service provider. We do obviously M365, Azure. We're about 70 people big. We have 5 locations total, 3 in New York, 1 in Raleigh, and 1 in the Philippines. We do a little bit different because we do structured cabling, access controls, cameras, phone systems, and I know a lot of MSPs are getting into the phone system side of the house. So we do probably a lot of what you do, and maybe added on some of the actual physical infrastructure to it as well. So that's StoreTech in a nutshell. We're an MSP, and we're just out there trying every day, like everybody else, to find new clients and to use the best products and to really delight our clients. At the end of the day, delighting clients is all we really care about. Conversely, I am part of a community called Text Together. We're an MSP purchasing community as well as support. So we sell a lot of the Kaseya platform. We sell a lot of products that you would need to build out your RMM, your PSA, your AAV, and we try to bring it to market with, at the best case, no contracts and no minimums. In the worst case, very small yearly contracts at best. So we really try to bring the ability to be an MSP to anyone who would like to try to walk down that road. And if you're an existing MSP, a lot of times working with us, you can save some serious capital on your tool set. So that's what Text Together does. About 2,500 MSPs globally in it right now. We got a great little community. Some people just join the talk with us and share ideas. We love it. We'll often do a lot of training. We bring in vendors. It's a great collaborative experience, and for me, it's really fun. Again, as an MSP who's doing a lot of stuff you guys are doing, to hear what's out there. I can't tell you the number of pieces of nuggets of ideas or wisdom that an MSP, and it doesn't matter whether you're one person or 1,000. Everybody's got something to contribute.
Oh, 100%. I agree 100%. That value from a community, from a group of peers, from the hallway in a conference often outweighs any sort of structured presented material. Just being able to talk to a peer and like, man, yeah, no, hey, what's going on in your world? Well, it's struggling with this. You know what? We had that, and here's what we did, and things like that. There's a lot of people who will take that time out of their day and just say, yeah, let's like, here's everything I know, here's everything I got, here's like the willingness to share and give in that sort of environment is just it doesn't have a limit, at least in my experience.
No, I've leveraged and had conversations and benchmark people 10 times my size, 20 times my size. And everybody that I've ever found in the MSP community, we're really happy to share what we've done, what's worked and what hasn't. So if you're not talking to your peers, you really should.
Well, so those of you who are on, there is a process right there. Again, on the handout section, you can download Mark's process for how he does communication. we barely scratched the surface of the content of that document. So please do feel free to grab it and utilize it in any way. StoredTech.com will get you over to Mark and his team, or you can always reach out to myself. You can go to r&r.consulting. You can ping me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect you with Mark. He's also active on LinkedIn as well. And now we have time for questions. So if you do have a question, you can throw it out in the Q&A. There is one that was sitting here, and let me just review it and make sure that it's good. Okay, so Mark, when you're communicating with clients, so you've bought a book of clients, is there a special cadence or amount of times that you guys communicate? So kind of people looking for, hey, what's the cadence, or what's a little bit more details into the tactics on communication?
Sure. I mean, when you look at those clients, we're going to prioritize clients, obviously, like any one of us would do. And let's take it from example of, a very significant client. In most cases, if there's, let's just say there's 50 clients, I'm going to try to meet face to face with about 30 of them. Part of your job as a CEO is not turning the screwdriver. It's about building relationships and driving the business forward. So wherever they're at, I will go to that location. I will grab the existing leadership, C-level exec, whoever it is, and I will purposefully meet with that person. I will let them know who we are. I will let them ask questions. I will let them say, well, we really love this guy, so you better do, clients say all sorts of crazy stuff in those conversations. But when you've left that conversation, you at least have the first start of, okay, cool. So here's what we're going to do next. So in most cases, if I want to get in front of them first, I won't send them the communication. If it's a small client that really honestly just sends us $50 a month and it's a tactical thing, they're going to get a letter of saying, here's who we are, here's what we did, and then keep going through there as far as, here's how you do your billing. Someone's going to be in touch with you for this stuff. So it's a very step-by-step process. But for me, it's all about the personal relationship. Get in front of them, talk to them. Do not leave that message to be delivered by the ex-CEO of the company or any of the ex-leadership without you in the room. You want to make sure that you start to build those bridges, build those touch points. So bring along a client success rep, bring along a sales exec, bring along a VP of finance, but go and meet them. Phase one, absolutely right out of the gate. After that, you're going to be very personal, right? There's going to be a billing change. There's going to be the announcement. There's going to be the press release. Share all that communication with them. Tell them what you told them, and then tell them again and tell them again until the fact where they get to the point of going, I love my new team and this is fantastic. That's what you need to get to. And that comes from multiple touch points, starting with the most important one, which is the personal face-to-face. Get in front of them.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, the webinar is about to close down, everyone. I super appreciate everyone taking some time on your Thursday to join Mark and I to run through this. Mark, thank you for all the time and effort and being willing to share openly and honestly with the community.